It was supposed to be a perfect day, a moment of joy, promises, and new beginnings. But instead of walking away with only memories of vows and celebration, this family walked away with blood, stitches, and a wedding forever stained by secrets and betrayal. The cameras didn't just capture flowers and dancing. They caught a fight so raw, it sent one brother to the emergency room and left an entire family wondering if the truth was worth the wreckage it caused. Hi friends, I'm Christine, and welcome back to Inside Hollywood Couples. If you love following the real drama behind the shows we all watch, make sure you hit subscribe and leave me your thoughts in the comments, because I really want to hear how you felt about this episode. What we saw in this chapter of Welcome to Plathville was more than just a family argument. It was a collision of years of silence, control, and resentment that finally boiled over. Micah and Isaac's confrontation wasn't just two brothers fighting. It was the physical breaking point of everything that's been brewing for seasons. Lydia's wedding, meant to unite, became the stage for the family's most public implosion yet. Ethan's quiet bitterness, Barry's control, Veronica stirring the pot, Amber's shocking confession, every moment piled on until joy gave way to chaos. And it all leaves us with one haunting question. When secrets come to light, do they free a family, or do they destroy it forever? The episode set the stage with a wedding that should have been beautiful. Lydia stood there, glowing in her dress, her vows trembling with both faith and hope. For a moment, it looked like the Plath family could hold it together. Guests clapped, smiles stretched wide, and even with all the baggage this family carries, it seemed like love might win out, at least for a day. But under that polished surface, tension was simmering, and it didn't take long, foe. The cameras didn't look away. They stayed on Micah, shaken and bleeding, as the reality of what just happened sank in. Guests whispered, some rushed to help, others stood frozen, not knowing whether to comfort Lydia or confront the brothers. Isaac's expression flickered between anger and shock, but there was no taking it back. He had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. And then there was Lydia, caught in the middle of it all. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she looked at her family tearing apart right in front of her, on the very day meant to symbolize unity. She tried to hold herself together, but her devastation was visible. How do you celebrate a marriage when your brothers are fighting and your family is crumbling in front of the world? The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was symbolic. A wedding is supposed to be sacred, a fresh beginning, but in this family, it became the backdrop for chaos. Every unresolved grudge, every unspoken resentment came spilling out in that one shocking moment. And for the viewers, it was impossible to look away. Because this wasn't just drama. It was years of silence exploding in the worst way possible. That night set the tone for everything that followed. Micah left with a scar that would need stitches. Lydia's joy was crushed under the weight of betrayal. And the Plaths once again showed that even the most beautiful settings can't hide a family still at war with itself. When the fight broke out, there was no chance of just brushing it aside. Micah had to leave the reception and head to the ER. The cameras followed that journey, and what they showed wasn't just a physical injury. Stitches were needed to close the wound, but the real damage went far deeper. Sitting in that hospital chair, Micah said what so many viewers were already thinking. His scar wasn't just from Isaac's punch. It was the mark of years of pain cut open by Thesson, the very people who were supposed to protect him. For Micah, this wasn't simply about a fight gone too far. It was a lifetime of control, silence, and buried frustration catching up with him. You could see the weariness in his eyes, the way he almost laughed at the absurdity of needing medical care on his sister's wedding night. It was more than a wound. It was a symbol. A reminder that family loyalty doesn't erase years of unresolved tension. When he returned to the wedding after getting treated, the energy in the room was completely different. Guests who had once been laughing and clapping now looked cautious, their smiles replaced with worried glances. Some avoided eye contact altogether. It was as if the fight had sucked the air out of the celebration, leaving only an uncomfortable silence in its place. Micah didn't come back with a loud entrance. He slipped in quietly, but everyone noticed him. The camera caught Lydia moving toward him, her face torn between relief and sorrow. For a moment, the chaos faded, and it was just a sister and brother sharing a fragile moment in the middle of disaster. Micah bent down and whispered something in her ear, words the microphones didn't pick up. But the look on her face told enough of the story. Her eyes filled with tears, and she clutched him, as if trying to hold together something that was already slipping through her fingers. That private exchange showed a truth the rest of the family seemed unwilling to face. Beneath all the arguments, the resentment, and the fighting, Lydia still longed for love and connection with her siblings. But even as she held on to Micah, she knew her wedding day had been irreversibly changed. The pictures might show flowers and dresses, but the memory would always carry the image of blood, stitches, and broken trust. In those few quiet minutes, the wedding became less about Lydia's marriage and more about the question that would hang over the entire family. How do you move forward when the people you love the most are the ones who wound you the deepest? The fight at the wedding was just the beginning. What came next took the shock to another level. As the family tried to pick up the pieces, Amber stepped forward with something no one expected. It wasn't an outburst or a rumor. It was paperwork. Cold, undeniable, written proof. She pulled out documents, and in one moment, the fragile balance holding the Plath family together shattered even further. These weren't just any papers. They hinted at secrets the family had worked for years to keep hidden. Financial details, personal records, things that made it clear the Plaths' story wasn't as pure and clean as they wanted the world to believe. Amber's hands trembled as she laid them down, but her voice didn't. She was tired of silence, tired of pretending, and she decided this was the moment to force everything into the light. The room froze. Barry's face tightened, Ethan's jaw clenched, and even Lydia's tears seemed to stop midstream. Suddenly, the wedding wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a courtroom, and the evidence was spread out for everyone to see. Micah, still stitched and sore, looked stunned. For him, this was another wound layered on top of the one he'd just received. Ethan's silence spoke louder than words. His eyes flickered between the papers and his father, and viewers could feel the weight of unspoken years pressing down on him. Isaac's defiance shifted into unease, and Veronica, who had been fueling whispers all night, leaned in closer, eager to watch the destruction unfold. The first explosion came from Barry. His voice cut through the tension, loud and defensive, trying to claw back control. He accused Amber of betrayal, of airing family business in the worst possible way. But Amber didn't back down. She raised her voice in return, pointing directly at him, calling out hypocrisy and lies. Her anger was sharp, not careless. She wanted the truth out, no matter how ugly it was. The second explosion came from Ethan. After years of holding his tongue, years of quiet bitterness simmering under the surface, he finally let the words out. He told his father exactly what he thought, that the control, the manipulation, the silence had cost them everything. His marriage, his trust, his peace of mind. The wedding wasn't ruined by Amber or Isaac's punch, he said. It was ruined by years of buried secrets finally clawing their way out into the open. Micah tried to step in, to calm things, but it was too late. The emotions were pouring out faster than anyone could stop them. Voices overlapped, tears flowed, and every camera angle captured the collapse of a family who could no longer pretend. For Lydia, it was unbearable. Her wedding had already been scarred by violence, but this was something different. It was betrayal, layered on top of betrayal. She stood between her siblings, pleading for peace, her hands shaking as she tried to gather up the papers and shove them aside. But you can't shove aside the truth once it's been spoken. You can't tape together trust that's already been ripped apart. The weight of that night was more than just a single fight or a single revelation. It was the breaking of a dam. Years of silence, years of strict control, years of unspoken pain, all flooding out in the most public, brutal way possible. And as the dust settled, the only question left was who would survive the storm and who would be drowned by it. Just when it seemed like the night couldn't spiral any further, Veronica stepped into the center of the storm. She had been whispering, nudging, and quiet, fueling the fire all night. But now she chose her moment to make it public. The weight of that night was more than just a single fight or a single revelation. It was the breaking of a dam. Years of silence, years of strict control, years of unspoken pain, all flooding out in the most public, brutal way possible. And as the dust settled, the only question left was who would survive the storm and who would be drowned by it. Just when it seemed like the night couldn't spiral any further, Veronica stepped into the center of the storm. She had been whispering, nudging, and quietly fueling the fire all night, but now she chose her moment to make it public. With a smirk that cameras caught perfectly, she reminded everyone that secrets don't stay buried forever, and if they did, she would make sure to dig them back up. Her words weren't loud, but they carried venom. She leaned in close to Lydia, almost taunting, suggesting that maybe this wedding was never about love, but about covering up the fractures in the family. For Lydia, already raw from the fight and the shocking papers Amber had revealed, Veronica's timing was cruel. The bride broke down, tears spilling faster, as Veronica's whispers chipped away at whatever strength she had left. And that's when Barry finally snapped. He turned his fury on Ethan, his eldest son, the one who had dared to speak the truth aloud. Years of control had defined Barry's role in the family, but in that moment, his authority slipped. His voice thundered through the reception, sharp and cutting, as he accused Ethan of disrespect, of betrayal, of trying to tear apart the very fabric of their family. But Ethan didn't back down. For once, he stood tall, his voice steady even as his hands shook with emotion. He told his father what many viewers had long suspected: that control disguised as love isn't love at all. That keeping secrets to protect the family only poisoned it. Every word Ethan spoke landed like a blow, not physical like Isaac's punch, but emotional, cutting deeper than anything else that night. The cameras caught Barry's face reddening, his jaw tightening, his grip on control slipping further with each passing second. Veronica's smirk widened, feeding on the chaos. Isaac hovered nearby, torn between anger and confusion, while Micah clenched his fists, ready to step in again if things got physical. The final clash came not with fists, but with words that couldn't be taken back. Ethan looked his father in the eye and said, "You already lost this family. Tonight just proved it." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream or punch. It was the kind of silence that breaks more than it heals. Lydia collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing, while the rest of the family stood fractured around her. Some avoided looking at each other, others glared, and the cameras captured it all. The Plath family, once marketed as a picture of purity and unity, now revealed as shattered, bleeding, and divided beyond repair. That night wasn't just a wedding. It was a reckoning. And for every family member who thought they could keep living in silence, the truth was clear. The lies had already burned down the house they were trying so desperately to hold together. By the time the night was over, the Plath wedding no longer felt like a celebration. It looked more like a battlefield. The music never started back up. The laughter never returned. Guests left in silence, some shaking their heads, others whispering about what they had just witnessed. For them, it was a shocking night of drama. But for the Plath family, it was something far heavier. The moment their fractures were laid bare for the world to see. In the days that followed, the cameras showed a family scattered. Micah carried the stitches on his face, a visible reminder of Isaac's punch. Amber avoided calls, her decision to bring those papers into the open leaving ripples she wasn't ready to face. That night wasn't just a wedding, it was a reckoning. And for every family member who thought they could keep living in silence, the truth was clear. The lies had already burned down the house they were trying so desperately to hold together. By the time the night was over, the Plath wedding no longer felt like a celebration. It looked more like a battlefield. The music never started back up. The laughter never returned. Guests left in silence, some shaking their heads, others whispering about what they had just witnessed. For them, it was a shocking night of drama. But for the Plath family, it was something far heavier. The moment their fractures were laid bare for the world to see. In the days that followed, the cameras showed a family scattered. Micah carried the stitches on his face, a visible reminder of Isaac's punch. Amber avoided calls, her decision to bring those papers into the open leaving ripples she wasn't ready to face. Veronica, true to form, didn't apologize. She seemed almost satisfied with the destruction, convinced that she had only revealed what was already true. And then there was Ethan. His words to Barry echoed long after the reception ended. Fans flooded online spaces, debating whether Ethan had finally broken free, or if he had only burned the last bridge that could ever connect him back to his father. Barry himself refused to back down. He framed the night as betrayal, as his children being ungrateful, blind to the sacrifices he had made. But what viewers saw was a man losing his grip, not just on his family, but on the narrative he had tried to control for years. As for Lydia, her wedding will never be remembered for her vows, her dress, or the promises she and her husband made. It will be remembered as the night her family unraveled before her eyes. Her tears, her shaking voice, her desperate attempts to hold on to joy. Those became the image, as burned into memory. The fallout leaves one haunting truth. When a family builds itself on silence and control, the first crack doesn't just break it. It brings the whole house down, and the Plaths may never recover.